Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's training session. I'm really excited that you're here to join me for our lesson in how to get the most from your claims. My name is Greg Kalin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Prosperity Behavioral Health, and I'm going to be your host today for this training session. So without further ado, I'm going to get started and dive right into the great content that we have on revenue cycle management and getting the most out of your claims. All right, so here we go. How to get the most from your claims. We're going to show you what the pros know about revenue cycle management, billing, collections, follow-up, all of that great stuff. So getting started here, I always like to set the table for a conversation like this by talking about why you're here in the first place. What prompted you to join this training session? And that's really the left-hand side of this page. What's the problem that you're facing? The problem that you're facing, if you're like most people, is that in the good old days, back 4 or 5 years ago, behavioral health was a relatively easy business when it came to the managed care relationship. You provided great care for your patients, you sent the bills to the insurance companies, and the insurance companies paid you for them. The problem is that in the last 4 or 5 years, things have changed a lot in behavioral health, and especially where the insurance companies are concerned. And now you are probably in a situation, like many people, where what was working back then isn't working so much anymore. You're still providing great care for your patients. You're still sending the claims to the insurance company the same way you always were, but you're not getting paid as much, or you're not getting paid at all, or it's taking ages and ages to get paid in the first place. And so as a result of that, you're experiencing significant cash flow problems. The first thing I will tell you is that you're not alone. This is a phenomenon that's happened across the industry and has posed a challenge for a lot of treatment providers. And the other good news is that there is a solution. We can help. So how are we going to help today in this training session? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you an overview of the claim life cycle. So we're going to talk about all the different steps that happen from the very beginning of when a patient gets admitted in the verification of benefits process, all the way through, claim submission, follow-up, appeals, and analysis. So we're going to talk about the whole life cycle of a claim. And then we're going to get in depth into each of the steps along the way. So we're going to talk about verification of benefits. We're going to talk about billing. We're going to talk about collections, and give you some, real tangible advice about how you can improve your performance in each of these areas. And then at the very end of the presentation, we're going to give you 10 tips to improve your collections. So these are 10 things that we do at Prosperity that you can start doing tomorrow that are going to immediately help make the most of your claim. So before we get into that, I'll just give you a quick background on your host, me, and Prosperity Behavioral Health. So Prosperity is a financial and strategic partner for mental and behavioral health businesses. What does that mean? That means that we know all about the business side of things. We, can be an outsourced CFO. We know about revenue cycle management. We know about accounting. We know about accounts payable. We know about acquisitions and sales. We know about, opening up new treatment centers. Basically, anything that covers, the money aspect of addiction treatment and behavioral health. That's where we come in. And we have a lot of experience across a variety of different providers. We work with providers who are small, single-site organizations. We work with multi-state, multi-site companies. We work with people who are providing just one service. Maybe it's, outpatient addiction treatment. We work with people who are providing all kinds of different services across a variety of sub-segments of behavioral health. And then we also work with, managed care. We work with cash pay. We work with Medicare and Medicaid payers as well. So we have a lot of experience in the revenue cycle and back office areas for mental and behavioral health. And myself personally, I've been doing, finance and corporate strategy for about 10 years. And most recently, before founding Prosperity, I ran the sort of strategy and growth planning operation for a national network of addiction treatment centers and behavioral health providers that really, sort of started out as a relatively small company and grew ultimately to be, one of the industry leaders in part because they had a really solid foundation on the finance and back office that supported the outstanding clinical and operational work that they were doing in the field. So let's talk about the circle of life of a insurance claim. So the first thing that happens when you get a call into your call center or into your admissions department is that you need to verify whether that patient has benefits that you can accept in your facility. And that's called the verification of benefits process. What is that exactly? Well, it involves really two steps if you're doing it right. The first step is to check online through Availity or some type of software system whether that patient has active coverage and sort of get a high-level picture of what those benefits are. And then the second step, which we think is really important, is to pick up the phone and call the insurance company and verify all that information with a live human being on the other end of the phone, because often that will give you different, or for sure it will give you more information than you can get through the online. So once you've decided that this patient has benefits that you can accept, you will admit this patient, you'll provide them some treatment, and then it comes time to bill the insurance companies for the services. So that is, sort of the second part of the revenue cycle is billing. What does that mean? That means entering the information about the patient, about the service you provided, about the insurance company into a billing system, or in somewhat rarer cases nowadays, onto a paper claim, and then submitting that through a clearinghouse or putting it in the mail to get to Blue Cross or Aetna or Cigna, so that you can get paid for those services that you've provided. The next step in the revenue cycle is collections. So collections is what happens after the billing. Once you've sent in a claim, the next thing you need to do is to follow up on that claim. Make sure the insurance company received it. When the insurance company doesn't pay it after a little while, you need to call them back and make sure that they're still working on it. Make sure that it hasn't gotten lost or denied or sort of channeled into some black hole that you can sometimes get at these managed care companies. So collections is really the process of moving the claim through the insurance company until they actually spit out the other end some result. Hopefully a check, but obviously in some cases also a denial that you can then sort of figure out what you're going to do with. The next thing that happens is when you get that check, you need to post the payment in your financial system. Whether it's a billing system or an accounting system, you need to recognize that you've received cash from the insurance company for a particular claim, and you need to track that in your system, because it's really important that you have this sort of data, and that you have the right data, you're posting the right information about every claim, so that you can do analysis on that later. After the payment posting, in the case of a bad outcome, as I said before, you might get denied. That might be the outcome of your claim, and that might be the outcome of the follow-up process. If you get denied, then you need to submit an appeal. And this is, there's a lot more that I'll say about appeals later on, but this is really the process of going back to the insurance company and saying, hey, you said that I didn't provide the service that I provided, or I didn't bill properly for it. Here's why you're wrong. And here's why you owe me this money. Reprocessing, the other part of this is when you post payments, you also need to make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount, that you're getting the right compensation for the service you provided. And in the cases that you're not, and there will be many cases where you don't, you need to submit that back to the insurance company for reprocessing. And the last part of the cycle of revenue here is analysis. And in many ways, I think that this is the most important part, because this is where information is transformed into insight. And what happens is you take all of the data that you're accumulating and you're entering and you're tracking in the rest of the process, you analyze that, and you produce from that actionable sort of strategies that you can implement in various parts of your business, in the revenue cycle function, but also in your clinical or operations or marketing, that will meaningfully increase what you're getting from your clients. So now that I've gone through this sort of high-level overview of the cycle, let's dial in to each specific aspect. So first, starting with billing. The devil is in the details when it comes to billing. What does that mean? What that means is that to get billing right is all about the little things. The first part of billing is the billing census. So what is this? The billing census is what the operations team or the clinical team sends to the billing team that tells them, okay, on such and such a date, we provide this service to this patient. And this is really important to get right because this is the foundation of everything else you're going to do in the billing and collections process. It's very important that you have processes in place to make sure that you're capturing all of your billable encounters on your billing census, and it's very important to make sure that this reconciles with any other types of tracking your patients that you might be doing. So we often recommend that people keep at least 2 different versions of the census. There might be a census in your electronic medical record, your EMR system, and we also always recommend that you keep a version of the census in Excel that gets updated manually so that you can have something to reconcile against. Because it's really, really important at the end of every week or at the end of every month, whatever your reconciliation cycle might be, depending on how much claims volume you have and how much staff you have. It's really important to make sure that this matches and that you captured all of your possible billable encounters. The next thing that happens in the billing process is data entry. And again, this might be automated to a certain extent if you're using a great EMR that has an integration with a billing system or has a billing system built into it. You might be able to push data from the EMR to the billing system to a certain degree. But a lot of the time, that's not the case. And what you have to do is you have to manually enter into the billing system all the information about all the patients and all the dates of service that you provided during this period. And again, coming back to the theme, the devil's in the details, it's really important to get every aspect of this right, because even just the tiniest inaccuracy, the tiniest error on the data entry front can cause a claim to get denied or can cause a claim to get sidetracked in the insurance company that could cause delays, and it could cause you not to get the most from your claims. The third piece here is charge review. So the charge review is where you sort of do this validation, this check against the billing census. You do a check against, if you have a heads in beds census as well, you want to do a check against that. You want to make sure that your clinical and operations team is involved in this process, at least to some degree, to make sure that you're capturing all the possible revenue for the services that you're actually providing. You want to make sure that you don't miss anything when you bill. The next phase here is claim scrubbing. Now, claim scrubbing is really important, and to a significant degree, certain software systems will help you out with this, but there's always, at the end of the day, a manual component. And what this means is you need to check all of your charges to make sure that the right data is in the right place on the right form. So you need to make sure your tax ID is right, your NPI is right, the physician is correct, all of the sort of technical aspects of the claim. You do an export from your system, or you have a report that you can run, and you make sure that you scroll down and check all of those key inputs to be sure they're accurate before you submit to the insurance company. And then the last part here is submission and confirmation. And what that means is once you've done your entry, once you've done your charge review and your claim scrubbing, you're going to click a button, or you're going to put an envelope in the mail, and you're going to send this claim to the insurance company. And that part is pretty simple. The confirmation component, though, is one of the important tricks to remember, that there are all kinds of reasons for technical errors and various reasons, technological glitches, that sometimes even once you've sent claims, the insurance company won't receive them. And so it's very important to follow up and run a report out of the system and call the insurance company in a couple of days and make sure that you have confirmed they've received all the claims you submitted. Because otherwise you could be waiting for months on a claim that you sent in that they never received, or they claim they never received. And so what do you get from this whole process at the end of these 5 steps? What you get is clean claims. And that's really the goal of the billing clock process, is to submit 100% clean claims. So the next phase of the revenue cycle is the collections process. And here, you're going to hear me use the word process over and over again. On the collections front, process. That's my mantra. So first of all, have a process. It needs to be, there needs to be a standard, well-defined, ideally written out set of steps that every biller goes through, or every collector goes through when they do follow up on claims. So the first part of the process needs to be follow up. You need to do some collections. You need to do the phone call to the insurance company. It's astonishing how often claims will go unfollowed up on for very, very long periods of time, just because there's not an organized process to make sure that the follow-up is happening. So follow up on your claims, step one. Step two, take notes. When you follow up, when you talk to the insurance company, it's very important that you document all of those interactions and conversations in your billing system, or in some other, ideally in your billing system, but also, if you don't have a great billing system, sometimes in an Excel spreadsheet works. There are, different ways of doing this, but the important thing is to write down what's happened in that conversation, what you heard from the insurance company, and what they have told you the next steps are, and when you should expect those to happen. And the third point here is make it specific. So this really means, first of all, don't settle for general, vague, oh yeah, it's in process, oh yeah, you'll see that money soon. Make sure, hold the insurance company accountable, give you a real, tangible, okay, on this date, this was the last thing that happened, this is the next expected step, when can I get that confirmed? And the other thing that we always tell people is make sure you get reference numbers and make sure you get the name of the person that you're on the phone with, because the insurance companies do record these calls, and believe it or not, it happens all the time for us at Prosperity, where one agent will tell us something, the next agent will tell us something different, and if we're able to give that reference number and that rep's name, we will be able to go back and get the insurance company to take a listen to that recording, and they will be responsive to the inconsistency, and they'll address the issue for us. So get a reference number, take down the name, and make it specific. All in all here, the key concept that I try to sort of drill in throughout the collections process is accountability. First of all, your billers and your collectors need to be accountable to collect the claims. So the way we organize our team at Prosperity actually is not to have a separate biller and a collector. We have one person who's an AR specialist who's responsible for their claims from beginning to end. So we hold them accountable at the end of the day for how much cash did they collect? Did they get the most from their claims? Because accountability really drives results. And then the other aspect of the accountability point is with respect to the insurance companies. You can and you should hold them accountable for processing the claims in a timely manner and paying appropriately for the services that you provide. So moving on to cash posting. So cash posting is all about EOBs, the explanation of benefits. So what I've done here is I've put a screenshot of a actual EOB from one of our clients in the top half of this page. And I'm just going to go through and explain what all of these terms mean and what the different aspects of the EOB represent. So column number one here, the billed amount, is how much did you charge? What's your gross amount that you sent the claim for? I provided a day of PHP service, and I'm charging you $1,935 for that day. That's the number that was on the bill. Column number two is the allowed amount. So $819 in this case is how much the insurance company has said you are entitled to be paid for the service you provided. Now, that might be your in-network contract rate. That might be based on a usual and customary rate. That might be a percent of Medicaid. There are a lot of different ways to get to this allowed amount number, but this in many ways is the most important number on the EOB, and it's often the least, it often gets the least amount of attention. Because this is what, it's not the cash that you're going to collect, but it's the price that the insurance company has agreed they are willing to pay for the service. So column number three is the not covered amount, or the discount. That's really just the difference between the billed amount and the allowed amount. So that's the portion that the insurance company said, no, you don't deserve $1,935, you deserve $1,116 less than that, or $819 total. Column number four is the deductible or copay amount. And this is pretty much what it describes. This is the amount that the patient owes you for their deductible or copays. So of that $819, $182.56 is the patient responsibility related to deductibles and copays. Column number 5 here is the coinsurance amount. That's $254.58. That's, again, a subset of that $819 that the insurance company is saying is the patient's responsibility because of their plan design and the coinsurance that they owe under that plan design. And then all the way on the right-hand side of the page, number 6, $381.86. The plan benefit is how much the insurance company has paid you for this claim. So there's a check attached to this EOB for $381.86. On the bottom half of this page, I've got a little sort of snapshot of some of the reporting that we provide to our clients around this, just to sort of illustrate how we use these numbers. So the first column, the insurance payment column, that's the column that everybody is most focused on. Number 6 from the top, that's the check that you've received. So that's the total payments that you've gotten on that particular patient from the insurance company. The private payment column is patient cash that's been collected. In this case, there hasn't been any for these claims or for these patients. The third column, the insurance disallowance, number 3, that's the not covered or discount from up above. That's the difference between your gross charge and your allowed amount. The patient responsibility, 4 and 5, we lump those together in this particular report. We have them broken out in our system. But this is the amount of money that the patients still owe you. So you got paid $4,300 from the insurance, and the patient now owes you $2,500. So you got to go after that because that's deductibles, copays, and coinsurance. And then the last column, the grand total, number 1, is the gross charge amount. So you billed 86, you got paid $4,300 by the insurance, they disallowed 18, and the patient owes you $2,500. And then the allowed amount, number 2 from above, is illustrated down below. Number 2 is basically number 6 plus number 4 plus number 5 plus number 3. So that's how much did you get paid plus how much does the patient still owe you is your allowed amount. So moving on to reprocessing and appeals. So the message on this page is persistence, persistence, persistence. So this is really, really important because the thing that the insurance companies have over almost every provider in behavioral health is size. You don't have the resources to fight all of the different tricks and monkey wrenches that the insurance company can throw at you, and that's really what they're banking on to pay you less, to deny your claims, to send you checks that are that are below what you deserve. And so the most important asset that you can bring to bear in the reprocessing and appeals process is don't give up. So let's start with underpayments. These are extremely common but very difficult to address precisely because most places, most behavioral health providers don't have the resources or the wherewithal to do it. The thing to do in the case of underpayments is to build your case. You need to be ready to argue for why you are owed more money than the insurance company has paid you. This is relatively straightforward in the case of an in-network contract. If you have an in-network contract for $600 and the insurance paid you $400, it's pretty easy to go back to them and say, hey, you have a contract with me for $6, pay me the extra $2. However, this is harder to do in the context of an out-of-network facility, but it's definitely still possible. And the way to do it is to use data. And so we'll come back to this in a little bit when I talk about analysis, but the important thing here is you need to know what the usual and customary rate or what the allowable amount is that you've been receiving in the past from the same insurance company for the same service. And you need to be able to compare new checks when they come in against those amounts so that you can know when you're being underpaid, first of all, And then second of all, use that information to go back and argue the case against the insurance company. On the denial front, there are, again, sort of sub-segmenting further. There's two types of denials. First of all, you have technical denials, and technical denials are relatively straightforward. They're relatively easy to fix. Those are cases where, despite all of the best efforts at the beginning, you haven't filled out the claim just the way the insurance company wants. Maybe there's a number missing over here, or maybe this box was, this information was put in the wrong box. In cases like this, it's pretty simple. You respond to what the insurance company is telling you, move this information from box 12 to box 15, you resend the claim, and those are pretty easy to resolve. It definitely does delay your payment, obviously, because you have to get the denial first, and then you resubmit the claim, and then you have to follow up on the new claim, and you go through the whole collections process again, but those are pretty easy to overturn. The clinical denials can be a lot tougher, but the most important thing to know about clinical denials is that it all comes down to the medical record. When an insurance company says, no, I don't believe you provided the service that you said you provided in this bill, send me the medical records to back it up. The nice thing is that if your medical records do in fact back it up, those appeals will get overturned. We see this all the time. Insurance companies often don't have any basis to deny those claims. They're just testing you. They are randomly selecting some claims to pull your medical records and make sure that you're actually providing the care you say you're providing. So if the medical records are there, the appeal is going to get the denial is going to get overturned on appeal. And the thing that's important to do in that case is to package up the medical records, to provide all of the medical records, to provide everything the insurance company could need to demonstrate that you did in fact provide the service. To sort of put that in a nice package with a cover letter that explains why you believe that this claim is justified, and you send that off to the insurance company. Again, the problem with denials is primarily that they delay payment. It's gonna take you longer to get paid because you have to go through the whole claim follow-up process all over again. But at the end of the day, if you get the technical denials resolved, and if you have your medical records in order, denials are very manageable. They're labor intensive. They require process and persistence, but they can be overcome. And the last piece of the revenue cycle that we're going to talk about today is analysis. So data-driven decision-making is all about analysis. And there are really three steps to this. The first step is gather your data, get it organized, and get it all in one place. This is really tough when you're using a bunch of different systems. You might have an EMR over here and a billing system over there and a customer relationship management software over here, maybe a call tracking system. But it's really, really worth it to spend the time and energy getting all of the data out of those systems that you can, aggregating it into one place, and organizing it so that it's easy to analyze. Because the power of this data cannot be underestimated. The next thing, once you've done that, the next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure you're asking the right questions. And when I say the right questions, what I mean is it might be nice to know that you collect 100% of bill charges on patients with with a birthmark on their left hand that admitted on a Sunday afternoon in July. But that doesn't really tell you anything you can act on. The important thing when you're doing analysis is to make sure that you're asking questions from your data that will result in real insight that can drive decision making. So a great example of this is analysis related to what referral sources are producing the most revenue per patient day. If you have all the data organized, if you have the analysis set up right, you can ask a really powerful question that will really make an impact on how you target your marketing dollars, how you drive your clinical program, how you manage your operation, and definitely how you get the most from your claims in the revenue cycle process. So ask questions with answers that are going to help you take action. And then the last piece is don't let good analysis sit on the shelf. So what I mean by that is we very often come across organizations that have great data, great analytics, and very little progress. And the reason for that is that the executive team reviews the analysis, the CEO, the CFO, the investors, but that analysis never gets into the hands of the people who are actually on the front lines every day. That doesn't get to the admissions director. It doesn't get to the the operations team. It doesn't get to the billers and the collectors who are really going to take that information and use it to improve the performance of the business. So we've now come to the top 10 tips. So this is, I call this a checklist for success, because basically these are concrete tasks or concrete actions that you can take right away to get more out of your claims. So you can start tomorrow with a bunch of these and you will see meaningful improvement in your cash collections very, very quickly. So we've got 2 for each category here. Let's start with billing. The 2 items under billing are speed to submit and claim amounts. So when I say speed to submit, what I mean is it's very important to get your claims into the insurance company as quickly as possible. That's the way that you're going to get the cash back to you as quickly as possible. So our rule of thumb at Prosperity is no claim should sit on the shelf more than 10 days. There are good reasons why you might hold a claim. You might be waiting for an authorization, for example, and you want that auth number to attach to the bill before you send it in. But even if that, even if you're in that status for a period of time, at a certain point, our philosophy is get those claims in, get the process started. You can always call them up in the follow-up process with the auth number after the fact and get that attached to the claim once it's at the insurance company. Because the faster you submit, the faster you're going to collect. The claim amounts piece here, the second item, is really about avoiding red flags. So our rule of thumb at Prosperity, everybody's got a slightly different version of this, but our rule of thumb at Prosperity is keep your claim amounts under $10,000. Any claim that, the smaller dollar amount the claim, the less likely it is to pop up in some algorithm at the insurance company that says, we need to look more closely at this. So rather than bill your whole episode of care for a patient altogether on one claim, for example, you might want to break that up into a number of smaller bills to keep the dollar amount down. At Prosperity, we bill weekly for that reason. We send in claims every 7 days to make sure that we don't get too big a number at the bottom of those bills. I'm moving on to the collections. So our 2 points under collections here are work queues and AR reviews. These are 2 really, really important techniques that you can use with your collections team that will really, again, very, very quickly make a meaningful improvement in your collections. So on the work queues, what we do at Prosperity is we have a list of claims that our AR specialists are working, and those lists are organized in a very specific way. So just to give you one example, a lot of insurance companies will allow you to talk about 3 different accounts when you're on the phone with a rep. So when we set up our work queues, when our managers assign claims to our specialists, what we do is we make sure that you always have 3 claims from the same insurance company together. So that once you've waited 45 minutes on hold for a rep, you can maximize that time by working through 3 different accounts before you get off the phone. So by developing an organized list, an organized workflow for your staff that is sort of governed by these rules and best practices, you can get a lot more from their time and you can get a lot more money collected. The second piece here is the AR reviews. So this is a big part of our process of Prosperity. We sit down with every one of our AR specialists once a month and we go through every single claim that's in their portfolio. So like I said before, our team works a claim from start to finish. We don't have a collector that's separate from the biller. So we sit down with that person and we say, okay, so what happened with John Smith, date of service, January 6th, 2019, PHP? Where is that claim? What's the balance? What was the last follow-up? What's the next action item? And we make it really, really concrete with them when we go through these AR reviews. We look at all of the follow-up notes that they put in the system, and we talk with them about what is going on with every claim and what is, what's the next step and when do we think that claim is going to get collected. And what this does is it enforces accountability, and it also enforces, make sure that every claim gets touched and gets followed up on and gets meaningful progress during every 30-day period, which is one of our, sort of core standards that we enforce at Prosperity. Moving on to posting, we have 2 points here: allowable amounts and patient cash. So allowable amounts, I talked a little bit about this before. This is an sort of underestimated data point. It's really, really important that you don't just track how much you're getting paid, you also track how much is getting allowed. Because, as I said, this is a really, really key component of the reprocessing process. When you get underpaid, you're comparing that check that you got against the allowable amount rather than the payment amount. So it's really, really important that you track that allowable amount. And then on the patient cash side, how you post patient cash in the system also makes a big difference in how well you can understand your claims and how well you can understand, your payer mix. Because oftentimes we see people posting patient cash in one lump sum, or we see them posting self-pay patients and copays and deductibles in the same bucket. And that type of posting makes it really, really challenging to analyze the data after the fact. So we think it's really important that you post patient cash to specific claims, to the copay, deductible, coinsurance bucket, and that you keep it segregated between self-pay clients and patient responsibility on the insurance side. Moving on to the reprocessing and appeals, there are 2 things in here that we think are super important. The first one is a payer matrix. And what I mean by payer matrix is related to the comment that I made a few minutes ago about the allowable amounts. We have a report that we produce that tracks what amounts are being allowed by insurance company, by level of care, all across our network of clients. So we know in Arkansas what Blue Cross has been allowing for PHP level of care over the last 6 months, 3 months, 12 months, different periods of time. And so this is a really, really important tool, both for our revenue cycle team to identify underpayments and then to make the case in the reprocessing process, for lack of a better word. And also, we try to recommend that all of our clients use this type of a payer matrix in their admissions process as well, to give their frontline admissions staff really, really valuable information about different plans and financial responsibility when they're talking with prospective patients. The second point here is internal audits. So this really goes to the medical records and the clinical denials. We are big believers in getting ahead of a problem. So we encourage all of our clients to have a regular internal audit process. We actually do this for many of our clients. We have a UR team here that's made up of master's level clinicians. And our UR team on a quarterly basis does an audit of our clients' medical records and identifies areas for improvement. And it can sometimes be a very painful conversation to have with your clinical staff or your operations team when there are issues that you identify in your documentation and your medical records. But it is unbelievably valuable to do this for yourself before the insurance companies force it on you. And the last thing on this page here is the analysis bucket. So the first item here is where to deploy the data. I've already talked a bit about this in other items on this page, but the great thing about revenue cycle management analysis and data is that it's really, really beneficial across all aspects of the behavioral health organization. So it's useful in marketing and admissions, it's useful in clinical and operations, and it's definitely useful on the financial side of things. And the last point here, key KPIs, a little redundant, but key performance indicators. We have a handful of metrics that we really track and focus on. A couple of them I've already mentioned in terms of productivity. We need to make sure that all of our claims get touched every 30 days. For example, we need to make sure that every claim gets submitted within 10 days of the date of service, for example. But the other thing that we really focus on, frankly, is cash. Our number one KPI is cash. How much did we collect on behalf of our clients? And Importantly, we like to focus on the cash per patient day. We always steer people away from thinking about collections in percentage terms, because the simple fact is that one man's billed charge is not the same as another. So you can have two facilities down the street from each other. One is charging $500 for a service and the other one's charging $1,000 for a service. They might get paid the same $300. The percentage collection rate at the first facility is going to look a lot higher than the second one, but they're not actually doing any better. So we always steer people to, let's look at hard cash, let's look at dollars per patient day as our primary metric. So that's really the sort of important thing on the key KPIs is make sure that you're identifying and tracking metrics that will give you the insight that you need to take action. So that's all we have for today on getting the most from your claims. I hope you have found this to be helpful, and I hope that you're going to start putting in place some of these top 10 tips in your organization, because I really think that they're going to have a big impact for you. We would love to hear back from you with any questions or comments. We're very focused on constantly improving ourselves. So anything that you have learned from this presentation that you found useful, we want to know what you liked. Anything that you thought I could have talked more about or I could have been clearer, we also want to know about that. So please reach out and let us know if you have any questions or comments. And really, also, we love to talk about this business. We love to help, and we love to hear about what people out there are doing, both on the revenue cycle side and also on the clinical and operations, and just generally in the behavioral health industry. We're always trying to be better partners with our clients and learn more about what's going on in the industry. So please reach out to us anytime. We'd love to connect and talk about your experience and hear about your organization. Our phone number is 888-525-8524, and our email address is info@prosperitybh.com. I'll also give you my personal email address, which is first initial, last name, gkalin@prosperitybh.com. You can contact me anytime. Like I said, I love nothing more than to hear from folks in behavioral health about what they're working on and what's working for them and what their challenges are. So looking forward to hearing from you and looking forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks.